Good morning. Hello. Good morning. Welcome to Savitri Bhavan. I'm Neel, and I've been working here for the past 1 year, little more than 1 year, and it's my blessing, my incredible privilege today to share Savitri with you. So we'll just get into it. To just start with, I would love to hear from some of you, if not all of you. What is it that brought you here? What is it that interested you? What do you already know? So, anyone, just like one line, anything. Oh, what made you want to come and learn about Savitri? For Savitri, but why? What made you interested in Savitri?
Savitri itself is so interested in. So wherever related to any talk, anything is happening, so I just feel like to come and join.
Okay.
So this was the.
So you've read Savitri before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Just for the recording, they need the mic.
So yeah, thank you for making this possible.
You can also share your name, yeah.
I'm Meenakshi, and honest confession, I tried to read and it was beyond me. So any help is welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
I'm Shiva. I kind of resonate with what she was saying. I mean, I tried reading it. I know it's all about super consciousness. So that's the basic outline I have. I've been living in Auroville for quite a while. I thought it's better I get to know about it more.
Fantastic, thank you. Anyone else? Just what made you want to come? What interested you in this today?
I am Ameya. I have been visiting Auroville since many years, and there have been a number of Savitri-related introductory sessions, mostly on Sunday mornings, which I have always missed. So for years, I have had this curiosity to start my introduction to Savitri and then go deeper into it. So that curiosity and the first step.
Okay, fantastic. That's really helpful for me to know where everyone's at. But yeah, so with that, I think we can just get started. So the intention today is to just give an introduction to Savitri. I am nowhere qualified to explain Savitri or to go very deep into it, but hopefully at the end of today, we'll know what it is, why it's so significant, why it's given so much importance, and how can we actually begin to go into it and begin to go deeper into it, which you can do on your own. And I'll also share with you some of the tools that are available. I mean, there's a lot of books and resources. There's a lot of like events at Savitri Bhavan and in Auroville. So you can find what works for you. And hopefully today I'll give you an introduction to what are the possibilities. But just to get started, what is Savitri? So again, the question is to you all. What do you know of Savitri? What is this book in my hand? What is the understanding right now? Or even if we leave this book apart, do you know the story from the Mahabharata of Savitri and Satyavan? So again, just to get as much as possible from you before I add what else needs to be added. What is Savitri? Again, no wrong answers. Sorry, could you just say that one more time?
It's a woman fighting to get her husband's life back.
Oh yeah, a woman fighting to get her husband. That's the story from the Mahabharata, and mostly also the story in this book. Yeah, the Sri Aurobindo calls it the story of conjugal love's conquest over death. right? So the power of married loves to conquer Yama and death, and that's the story in the Mahabharata. Yeah, anyone else want to add anything? Yeah, so basically in the Mahabharata, it's a minor story. It's like a Bhakhyan in the Van Parvam, the book of the forest in the Mahabharata. It's like a side story, you know, it's like Yudhishthir is talking to a rishi. The rishi tells him a story of, he asks him, you know, has any woman ever suffered as much as our Draupadi is suffering? And so the rishi says there was one, Savitri, and so he tells the story of Savitri. So it's a very like tangent, and Sri Aurobindo has taken that tangent and he's done something with it. So why is this book in particular so special among Sri Aurobindo's works? I mean, Sri Aurobindo has written a lot of life-changing works, you could say. There's a synthesis of yoga, there's the Life Divine, essays on Gita, so many, human cycle, renaissance in India. But there is no synthesis of yoga Bhavan, there is no Life Divine Bhavan, there is no essays on Gita Bhavan. Why is there a Savitri Bhavan? Why is this book in particular given so much importance? Does anyone know? Anyone have any guesses? No? Okay, so that's what we're going to, hopefully we can answer this by the end of today. So just to get started, Savitri, a legend and a symbol, that's the full title for the poem, is Sri Aurobindo's epic poem of almost 24,000 lines in blank verse. Blank verse just means that there is no rhyme scheme, but there is a meter, right? There is a rhythm, but there is no rhyme. And I think it's one of the longest poems in the English language. And that's actually a draft written by Sri Aurobindo, like handwritten by him, of an early draft of the opening lines of Savitri. You can see it was the hour before the gods awake. So the first known draft dates to 1916, and the last edition he made just weeks before he left his body in 1950. That means he worked on it more or less for more than 30 years. Just to put that in context, we're talking about someone who wrote Synthesis of Yoga, Life Divine, Essays on Gita, Human Cycle, Ideal of Human Unity. Like, he wrote all of these books simultaneously. Right? He wrote, in the span of 6 years, like 1914 to 2021, he wrote the Arya, where he wrote like maybe 14 volumes of his collected works together. So someone who wrote 14 volumes in the span of 6 years spent 34 years almost on one poem. Something is going on, right? Like, there is something very significant about this work in particular. And so once you open Savitri, the very first thing you'll see after the legend and the symbol is the author's note. So I'll start by saying that I completely confess I am not qualified to explain Savitri, and I think there are only two people in the world who are genuinely qualified to explain Savitri. Can you guess who they might be? Yeah, exactly. So there's one behind you and one behind me. So that's what I'm going to try to do in this session, is try to give you what they have said about Savitri, what Sri Aurobindo and the mother have said about Savitri, and from there we can understand what it is, why it's so significant, how it can help us, how should we read it, right? How do we approach this? How do we receive Savitri? So we'll learn from them. So starting by the author's note, author obviously here is Sri Aurobindo. This is a part of the author's note, it's not the whole thing. So like Shiva also said, the tale of Satyavan and Savitri is recited in the Mahabharata as a story of conjugal love conquering death. But this legend, as shown by many features of the human tale, is one of the many symbolic myths of the Vedic cycle. So Savitri is a legend, it's an ancient story, but it's also a symbol. And what Sri Aurobindo means by this is, he's saying that when we say it's a story of conjugal love conquering death, it's not just conjugal love conquering death, it's the power of, we're talking about the conquest of everything that death represents. And that represents ignorance, unconsciousness, suffering. So from mortality to immortality, from unconsciousness to consciousness, it's the story of that conquest, and death is a symbol. And he's talking about how there's many kind of symbolic stories like this from the Vedic times, and this is one of those. This is the last line of the author's note. I find this so incredibly powerful, and it blows me away every time that he's saying this is not a mere allegory. The characters are not personified qualities, but incarnations or emanations of living and conscious forces with whom we can enter into concrete touch. And they take human bodies in order to help man and show him the way from his mortal state to a divine consciousness and immortal life. The first time I read this, I was struck. So he's saying here that Savitri, Satyavan, all the other characters, I won't go into all of them here, they're not personifications, right? He's not given a human form to some abstract quality. They are living and conscious forces. So you can enter into concrete touch with these living and conscious forces, and they will help you and show you the way from mortal state to a divine consciousness and immortal life. And what Sri Aurobindo has given here to us is a gift, it's a tool to help us get in touch with these conscious forces, to help us make that contact. So this is kind of incredible, and it hints at the potential of Savitri if we're able to receive it. And so the idea is here that this tale of the Mahabharata, Sri Aurobindo has used this framework to give a kind of mantric expression to his spiritual experiences, to his yogic vision. So he's reworked this into an epic. It wasn't an epic, it was a minor episode. So this symbolic tale has become its own epic, and it's its own story. It's not really the story from the Mahabharata. And again, just a broad outline of the structure of the book. Savitri is broken into 3 parts, and it's broken into 12 books, which is also like a classical form. All the epics are Mahabharata and all, they're usually in 12 books. So there's 12 books, and each book is broken into cantos. Canto, I think, is an Italian word for song. So there's 49 cantos, there's 12 books, there's 3 parts. This is what Savitri is. But even if you just read the names of the books, the Book of Beginnings, the Book of the Beginnings is talking about literally the beginning of the universe, right? The Book of the Traveler of the Worlds, where Savitri's father goes through all the different planes of existence, trying to reach the highest plane. The Book of the Divine Mother, the Book of Birth and Quest, the Book of Love, the Book of Fate. He also talks about the problem of pain and suffering. The Book of Yoga, again, finding of the soul, the search of the soul. The Book of Death. So it's telling us like Savitri is really covering everything. It's covering all the biggest questions in human life. It's covering all the biggest areas of existence, right? All the eternal questions that people keep coming back to of how did it all begin? What is it all? What are all the planes? What is love? What is death? What is suffering? Why is there suffering? If there is a God, why do we suffer? Right? So, and what is yoga? How do you progress? How do you grow in consciousness? All of this, everything that Sri Aurobindo has said in his other works, he has also said here. So that is, again, the scope of Savitri is so immense. And here we'll hear from Sri Aurobindo himself. So, would one of you like to read this out? Yeah. Do you want to go ahead? The mic is there. No,
Okay.
okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm not the best, but all right. Sri Aurobindo and Savitri. I used Savitri as a means of assassination. I began with it on a certain mental level. Each time I could reach a higher level, I rewrote from that level. Moreover, I was a particular. If part seemed to me to come from any lower levels. I was not satisfied to leave it because it was good poetry. All had to be as far as possible for same mint. In fact, Savitri has not been regarded by me as a poem to be written and finished, but as a field of experimentation to see how far poetry could be written from one's own yogic consciousness and how far that could be made creative.
So, did everyone mostly understand that? Or should I explain this? I mean, it's giving us a hint that it's not just a poem, right? This is one way of understanding it. It's a written embodiment of Sri Aurobindo's consciousness. If we can open ourselves and get into contact with that, this is a very concrete means of getting into contact with Sri Aurobindo's consciousness. And it also gives us a hint of why it took him 34 years. Because he kept going back, and as he progressed between 1916 and 1950, as he progressed in his consciousness, he would keep coming back and revising it. And he's like, the level on which I wrote from in 1916 is not good enough. Now I'm at a higher level and I'll rewrite from that level. Everything has to be from the highest possible level. And that's what he's tried to give us in Savitri. He actually never finished Savitri because he kept, and he himself is saying it's not regarded by me as a poem to be written and finished. So he kept revising it, and there were always revisions to be made, there were always improvements to be made because he was always progressing. He was always moving forward in his consciousness. So yeah, it is written from the highest possible consciousness that we can imagine, and that's what we can enter into contact with. And just a few words from the mother on Savitri. So I think actually it's nicer if others read it. I'm sure you're tired of my voice. Yeah.
I believe that it's his message. All the rest are the preparations, but Savitri is the message.
The supreme revelation of Sri Aurobindo's vision. Savitri is a mantra for the transformation of the world.
Yeah, so again, we're not much to explain here, but we're getting a hint of the significance. And again, the mother is saying all the rest are the preparations, but this is the message. And hopefully that answers why there is a Savitri Bhavan, why this in particular is considered to be his magnum opus. Yes?
Like you said that he made so many revisions. The revisions were like writing all the people are going and then change the perspectives of writing as in which perspective of British?
He expanded Savitri, like it started out as much smaller, but every time he would go back, he would add more, he would make the books longer, he would make the cantos longer. Then books would become so long, he would split them into multiple books. He would rewrite. You can see in his draft some lines, the original line and then the final line, which is now there. So everything kept changing, and a lot of things were, I don't think he deleted anything, but he expanded a lot and he rewrote the same thing in a different way, in a different voice, different words were used. So a lot of revisions, and that's also, I'm someone who writes poetry, so for me it's very interesting to study his process of how he changed the word here and why he changed the word here. So all of that material thankfully is available to us. But yeah, that's a interesting question. There's a lot of revisions. And towards the end of his life, his eyesight was failing, so he was actually not writing, he was dictating. And so he would dictate, Nirod Baran, his scribe would write it down, and then again he would read it out to him, and again Sri Aurobindo would make revisions. So there was a lot of work. It was his sadhana, we can say. And a few more words.
The daily record of the spiritual experiences of the individual who has written.
Savitri is Sri Aurobindo's own yogic diary, you could say.
A complete system of yoga which can serve as a guide for those who want to follow the integral sadhana.
The yoga of the earth in its ascension towards the divine.
So it's not just, he's not just talking about it, he's giving us the yoga, right? He's giving us both our own yoga and he's giving us, in Sri Aurobindo's approach, there's nature's yoga also. So nature is also going towards the divine and we're also doing the same thing. So in case that was not enough, just a few words from the mother on why we should read Savitri and what exactly is the significance and how it can help us at a human level on our journey. So this is a very simple, for the opening of the psychic, which is the soul, for the growth of consciousness, and even for the improvement of English. It is good to read 1 or 2 pages of Savitri a day. Again, it's a long work. You can read 1 page a day, it's enough. Actually, just yesterday I was talking to an Aurovillian, very old Aurovillian, Nishtha. He's been here since the 70s. And he was telling me, he's German, he was telling me how he learned English through reading Sri Aurobindo, through reading Synthesis of Yoga and the Life Divine, which is incredible to me. But that is, I think, the power, and I think that is what the mother is saying, that you can do that. And here also, she says, Savitri alone is sufficient to make you climb to the highest peaks. If truly one knows how to meditate on Savitri, one will receive all the help one needs. For one who wishes to follow this path, it is a concrete help, as though the Lord Himself were taking you by the hand and leading you to the destined goal. Every question, however personal it may be, has its answer here. Every difficulty here finds its solution. Indeed, there is everything necessary for doing the yoga. I mean, this I think is incredible. The Lord Himself taking you by the hand to the goal. The Mother herself saying this. And I think the last line, I can personally attest to it, that every question you might have, you will find the answer. Whether it's a question of yoga, or it's a question of life, or of death, or of suffering, or of love, or whatever it is all here. The scope is enormous. So the importance of Savitri is immense. Its subject is universal. It covers everything. Its revelation is prophetic. It's giving us a hint to the future, and the time spent in its atmosphere is not wasted. And actually, Savitri Bhavan, one of the visions of Savitri Bhavan is to breathe the atmosphere of Savitri. So that is what we try to do, because the time spent in its atmosphere is not wasted. So one thing I'll also point out is, if truly one knows how to meditate on Savitri, right? So that's an important point here. So we'll come to that, of how do we actually, what is the right way to read Savitri? How does one truly meditate on Savitri? But before that, I've done this session a few times before, and one question that often comes up is, why poetry? Why did Sri Aurobindo have to do this as a poem? Why could he have not done it as prose? So I'll try to answer this, but I'll also ask you, why do you think he might have written this as a poem? All of this which Mantric and Sri Aurobindo have said that he's tried to do, why did it have to be a poem? Any guesses? Okay, so when a very deep emotion, a very deep experience you want to express, it kind of automatically comes as poetry. Yeah, actually, Sri Aurobindo says something almost exactly like that. Anything else?
I mean, they have an illumined mind, and that, I mean, generally poets reach that level of, and that's when poetry comes, when your mind is illumined. And Of course, it makes easy reading when compared to prose.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, but I think, see, in Sri Aurobindo's case, he was already a poet. He was already writing poetry, and he already had this kind of illumined mind. He was writing synthesis of yoga and life divine also from the same inspiration. But yeah, I think you're still hinting at
even
it.
people now talk about Savitri, they compare it with the Vedas, where Vedas is all about chanting and the vibration. And they say, well, you don't understand Savitri is fine, but then when you read it, the vibration is enough.
Right.
Is that true?
Yeah. So that's also a big part of it. Anyone else?
So, when it comes to poetry, like she said, it might have flowed very easily and he might have been in touch with his psychic being more. So, he was flowing more from his inner depth rather than just from the outer surface. So, he might have felt that natural, not natural, but yeah, inner psychic flow.
Okay, I think you covered most of the points which I have. I'll just say that in Sri Aurobindo's case, even his prose was coming from inspiration. If you see him when he talks about it, he's saying that it came as a flood. I mean, when we're talking about someone writing 6 books at the same time, right? He himself says, I am not capable of doing this. Is not me. It is happening. I am just the instrument, right? So even that prose is coming from an inspiration, and even the revisions he says comes from the inspiration. Right? So he goes back also, and the changes also comes. He's like, my mind is not involved in this process. It is this higher consciousness, the overmind, supermind, whatever you want to, different things for different things. But it's all coming from inspiration. But again, yeah, poetry, it is very, very significant. So these are, again, I was reading Sri Aurobindo's letters on art and poetry, the future poetry. He's talked about all of this. So one, he says that poetry is a higher mode of expression. And like you said, if you look at the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata, including the Gita, obviously, Ramayana, they're all poetry, right? And in many, even the Quran is poetry, right? So all of the highest expressions of human beings, or highest spiritual expressions, they're usually poetry. It is considered to be the highest form of expression. In a way, it's considered to be maybe he thought of this as the best medium to express his yogic vision and his spiritual experiences. And interestingly, after 1920 or 1921, Sri Aurobindo didn't write any prose. Actually, the only prose he wrote was this little book called The Mother. Besides that, after 1921, he didn't write any prose. He only wrote poetry, and he only wrote letters to his disciples. That's it. Everything else that he's written, which is prose, is before 1921. So something changed that year or at that time. So yeah, poetry, and especially this tradition of epic poetry, is regarded as a medium capable of expressing these very, very high states. As you can see in all and it allows you to kind of transcend the limitations of language, right? So language has a certain inherent limitation, which it makes it difficult to talk about something like a spiritual experience, or talk about God, talk about absolute reality. It's very difficult to put it into words. So poetry is considered to be the only medium that can come close to that. And like you said also, Sri Aurobindo considered poetry to be a form of mantric speech. So poetry has this aspect of rhythm and sound, and the word has power. So that mantric speech and that rhythm and sound can in itself create a higher state of consciousness within you. So that is something that he wanted to use to kind of invoke that. And typically, actually, when we think of mantra, a lot of us, at least I used to think of mantra as Sanskrit, right? Mantra is very linked to Sanskrit, but that's actually not the case. You can have mantric speech in any language. And one example is Vande Mataram, right? A very, very powerful mantra that became, a mantra for the freedom struggle, which is Bengali, right? So how that can be a mantra, and Sri Aurobindo is here saying that even English can be mantric, and he's doing that in Savitri. And another point is symbolism and imagery, right? That these spiritual experiences, you cannot talk about them directly. You cannot say it exactly. But in poetry, you can use symbols, you can use images, you can hint at it, you can come at it kind of sideways. And so you can create the image in people's mind of the experience you want to create, whereas in like the life divine, he would have to explain it very, very directly and precisely. So poetry gives you that power to talk about things which I might not have experienced it myself, but Sri Aurobindo can give me that experience or help me visualize at least that experience through symbolism and imagery, which I can understand. And lastly, I think also poetry has this power that it is open to interpretation, right? It has freedom. There is no one right way, which means everyone can approach it at their level, right? Whereas the life divine or synthesis of yoga, there is one thing that he is saying. But here, it's up to you. And the mother also says, we'll actually just read it, that each time you go back, you learn something new. And if all of us read the same lines, we all might take away something different. And if we all read the same line 10 years later, we might take away something else, depending on our own state of consciousness. So that, again, and that's also a very characteristic of the integral yoga, right? That there is no one correct way for everyone to follow all the time. Everyone finds their own way. There's some general guidance, but everyone finds what works for them. So poetry enables that, or kind of helps a lot in that. So yeah, and this is just a summary of that, that the rhythmic word of the poet is the highest form of speech available to man. And that is, for something as high as Savitri, this is the only medium, I guess you could say. And so yeah, now we come to maybe the most important part, which is how do we read Savitri now that we can appreciate what it is and why it's so significant, how it can really help us. How do we read it? So some of you already shared. How many of you ever tried to read Savitri? Like opened the book and tried to read it? Okay, about half or more than half. Yeah, so what was your experience? So one person shared already. What was your experience when you tried to read?
So when I had it, like reading normal books like self-help books and business books, it's fine. But when I had Savitri, like I have written Gita as well, but still it felt a bit kind of heavy to read. So felt like I need a guidance, and it's good to take some guidance before you start on your own.
Okay, yeah. Heavy, heavy is accurate. Yeah. Anyone else? Just like open.
Yeah. I was connected to Mother many years ago. So, like you, I was told to read Savitri. If you don't understand also the vibration, Mantric, this thing, everything is there. So I started reading every day, not one page, few lines, till full stop. I read, reading. And I really experience a kind of peace, inner peace when I read. And I concentratedly, if I read. I invoke the Mother, I call the Mother and Sri Aurobindo for a moment, and I read few lines up to this thing. So there are some lines which really gave me peace and also out of problems also. I used to chant those lines every day. It was told by some sadhak. So I was out of my difficulties also sometimes, it happened. And mostly it gives inner peace and some, what do you say, salvation of my challenges and all. So many things happened with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah.
When I read it, I usually not try to use my mind and just read and flow with that, and it happens, the magic happens. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. So from Shiva and from her, we heard like it is heavy and it's difficult. And I would say even for someone with very, very strong English, it is very difficult. The language is quite hard. But then from her and from him, Vivek, we heard its power, right? And how the magic can happen even despite the linguistic challenges. So this is what the mother has to say about Savitri and how do we read it. So the first point, it does not matter if you do not understand Savitri. Read it always. You will see that every time you read it, something new will be revealed to you. Each time you will get a new glimpse. Each time a new experience. Things which were not there, things which you did not understand arise and suddenly become clear. But you must not read it as you read other books or newspapers, self-help books or business books. You must read it with an empty head, a blank and vacant mind, without there being any other thought. You must concentrate much, remain empty, calm and open. Then the words, the rhythms, the vibrations will penetrate directly to this white page, will put their stamp upon the brain, will explain themselves without you making an effort. I think this was like my big learning with any kind of spiritual literature, even the synthesis of yoga when I first read it, or the Bhagavad Gita, definitely even more true for Savitri, that these are books that are not written from a mental consciousness, right? This is not, we're not reading philosophy that's written by some very intelligent person from the mind. This is coming from a higher state of consciousness. If I try to understand it mentally, if I try to do an academic study of it, I am reducing it, I am bringing it down to my mental level, which is a waste. Why do that? So the idea here is to remain open, to be as open, as receptive, as blank as you can, and to let Savitri do its work, let Sri Aurobindo's consciousness do its work, and maybe you won't realize, you won't understand at what level it's working, because it's not working at the surface. But it is working, and I can also attest to it personally. That I started reading Savitri quite a long time back, and I would read it and again I would be like, what just happened? I don't understand. And I'm a very mental person, so I have a need to understand. But then I would read the same thing a year later. I've done no study in between, I haven't read any explanations, nothing. And I would read the same thing a year later and I would be like, yeah, it's obvious. It's so clear what he's saying. It all makes perfect sense. Because something in the background is processing, something in the background is understanding. So every time I come back, and even now a lot of times there's some famous lines from Savitri that people quote again and again, or some passages that I've revisited. And I read it again and something new comes, some new understanding, some new realization comes. But yeah, this is very important, and I think she gave us a really beautiful example of one way to read Savitri, how she invokes the mother in Sri Aurobindo, and you read just a few lines, right? So over the years, I've seen a lot of different people read in a lot of different ways. Your mother said, read 1 or 2 pages every day. Just 1 or 2 pages every day, and it's okay if you don't understand. Read it anyway. Your English will improve automatically, but also the work will happen. Another way I've seen people read it is you just, and again the mother also says this, you hold a question, you have a question, or even if you don't have a question, you just hold an aspiration, and then you open it to a random page, and you just, wherever your eye falls, you just read a few lines, right? And you just stay with those lines, you can write them down. One thing we did, Vivek and Amita and Meera, they know, there's a course called Savitri Painting. And in that course, what we used to do is, again, we used to meditate, open to a random page, read a few lines, and then just meditate on those lines and paint those lines. So you can paint it, you can journal, you can write your own poetry, you can meditate on it. So there's so many ways for you to touch Savitri, to come into contact with it, make it your own, right? And I think that is the very essence of integral yoga, is find your way, right? There is all these possibilities available, there's all the guidance available. Sri Aurobindo and the mother give contradictory advice constantly because they're talking to different people and they're talking in different contexts. So what's something which works for Ameya might not work for Vivek, right? So they're giving them different and contradictory advice. So now it's up to us to try and see what works. So you try, if one line works for you, great. If one page works for you, great. And but yeah, the important thing is to keep that open mind and just be receptive and just let it come, let the reception happen, and just also stay with it, right? Don't immediately you read Savitri and then you open WhatsApp. No, stay with it, let it sink in, let it do its magic, and it will do its magic. Trust that the magic will happen and you will see the results very soon. So with that, I would like to go to the next part, which is an experience of Savitri and actually reading Savitri. So for that, I would want to introduce Meditations on Savitri, which is the title the mother gave to a series of oil paintings, 472 oil paintings that she made with a Gujarati sadhika named Bhuta. And in that, what they did was they illustrated selected passages from Savitri. So here she's explaining it that basically her and Bhuta would sit together, they would meditate on some lines from Savitri, and some image would come to the mother. She would quickly sketch it out or draw it, or she would describe it, and then Bhuta would work on it, and then mother would again give her inputs, and finally they would come up with a painting, and they did this 472 times. So yeah, she says it is in a meditative mood that these meditations must be looked at to find the feeling they contain behind the appearances. So we at Savitri Bhavan are very, very blessed that we actually were given all these paintings by Bhuta, and so we actually have this whole exhibition. So what I suggest now, because there's a lot of me talking, and now I think we should actually experience Savitri. So this is my suggestion, right? There's a lot of things you can do, but this is my suggestion, is take a little bit of time, quiet yourself, open yourself, concentrate yourself to reach that blank, empty state, and then go to the exhibition. It's right over there and to the right, and spread out to different parts, right? If all of us are in the same part, it might be a little too much. You can also go to a particular, the book of yoga is calling to you, or the book of love is calling to you, or whatever it is. You can just go to different parts, the book of the Divine Mother, and just move through the gallery at your own pace. Just explore, and it's a huge exhibition. You will not be able to cover it all in one day. Don't even try. Just go, just walk through, and if a painting catches your eye, if something in it calls to you and clicks with you, go and spend some time with it, stay with that painting, and underneath every painting are the lines from Savitri on which that painting is based. So you're not allowed to take your phones and you're not allowed to take photos, but you can maybe write down the lines on a piece of paper or a notepad if you have, or if you don't have it, you can write it on your phone, just don't take photos. And so you can write down the lines, and I would suggest if you do this even for one painting or maximum two, don't do it for too much also, but for one or two paintings, you can just stay with the painting, write down the lines of Savitri, and then you can come back, take your time, there is no rush, take your time, and when you come back, you can meditate on those lines, you can journal, you can write your own poetry, you can do whatever comes to you, and I'll also be here with all these resources in Savitri, so you can explore all of that. So this is my suggestion, but you can also feel free to stay here and read Savitri, whatever else calls to you. Does that sound good? Does that make sense? Yeah? Any questions or any clarifications? Yeah? Okay, so take your time, and whenever you're ready, you can head on over to the exhibition. I hate to interrupt because I love seeing this, but before people start to leave, I would just love to hear from you all how was your experience, or really anything that you have to share, any questions. I will not promise that I will answer them, but just any questions, any sharings, anything that you would like to say about your experience.
Yeah, Neel, I think suddenly Savitri's come alive for me. So, yeah, when I went and saw those paintings, now it makes sense. Like earlier, it was very random and very vague, but now it is making sense. And now, the best part that I like is that you can take away whatever, whenever, however. you don't have to read it like a book and yeah, so thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
How can we be a little more receptive?
How can we be more receptive?
Yeah.
Anyone want to try and answer that? I'm not sure I have the answer. It's a good question. It's something for all of us to work on.
Yeah, like it's a lot of knowledge, energy, and new perspectives. So sometimes when you're like overwhelmed with whatever is already happening here, so sometimes it's a little difficult to open that door and try to receive more. So
yeah,
even if you try, you fail. So what can we do for that?
It's a very good question. I don't think there's an easy answer, but if you know, like the mother has 12 qualities, right? The 12 petals of the Matri Mandir. Receptivity is one of them. So it's a very important quality, and it's something for all of us to endlessly progress on. How do we be more receptive? I think, again, I don't think there's one right answer. But for me, what really helped was having like a practice of meditation and concentration, because for me there's a lot of mental noise and mental chatter. So if I'm able to quiet the mind and be more calm, something like meditating in the inner chamber of the Matri Mandir can really help with that also. To just be the surface chatter slows down, right? Or how some people say, like, if the glass is full, nothing new can enter. So if you can empty the glass, then something new can come. So that's one of the things. But yeah, because it's one of the 12 qualities that the mother talks about, she's also written, and other people have compiled on receptivity. So maybe you can read what the mother has said on that, because yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that more fully.
The room which I'm staying at, been a couple of weeks now. Even the name is receptivity. When I went to Matri Mandir, they ask you to choose colors. The color was receptivity, and now I understand the question I ask you leads. Yeah. I think I need to look into it.
It sounds like you're working on it. Sounds like it's happening, and it will happen. Yeah, I think maybe there's also like there's a trust in that, right? That you keep yourself open, and it does its magic. But yeah, if anyone else wants to add, because I know other people might also have some experience. But thank you, that's such a beautiful question. How do we be more receptive?
But the aliens or opposites, they must unite. They work and battle and with pain agree. These join, those part, all parts and joins anew. But never can we know and truly live till all have found their divine harmony. Our lives' uncertain way, winds circling on. Our mind's unique search asks always light, till they have learned their secret in their source, in the light of the timeless and its spaceless home. Yeah, I mean, for me, this Auroville is more about that divine harmony. And I've always wondered, like, what's been the crux of Savitri? Like, at the end of the day, like, I mean, is it the levels of the mind that traverses, or, I mean, if you look at it as a mantra, are you moving towards the divine? How has it worked for you?
I won't say how I can't say I think how it's worked for me, but how it happens in Savitri, and how I think it's Sri Aurobindo's yoga, right? So it's not just the levels of the mind, it's going from the lowest layer of the subconscious and the inconscient, right? So it's starting from the very bottom to the body, to matter, life, the vital, mind, and then all the planes beyond the mind. And there's a lot that is beyond the mind, which we are not privy to.
Expansion of consciousness.
Yeah, all these, the expansion and like the involution and the evolution, all of that is described. How Savitri's father, Ashwapati, he goes through the planes of consciousness, how Savitri herself then goes, and her journey, and at each level, the conversation she has with, different forces and different beings. And the goal, which I think we can say is also, it's Sri Aurobindo's goal, it's Sri Aurobindo's yoga of bringing it down to life, to matter, not just for himself, right? Like, I think there's a line in Savitri which is really beautiful, which is a lonely freedom cannot satisfy a heart that has grown one with all hearts. Is that correct, right? That it's not enough for Savitri, and it's not enough for Sri Aurobindo to do it for himself. He's like, my heart is one with all hearts, and I cannot leave everyone else behind. So to do that for all, for nature, the evolution of nature, the evolution of consciousness for everyone and all things. So that is, I think, my understanding of not just the story of Savitri, but of Sri Aurobindo's yoga. That is what he is trying to do. And I think this is just a very beautiful description of it, but also a very powerful and very detailed description of it. So like every angle of it is there. But yeah, it's much more than just the mind, I would say.
So, thank you so much for doing this, first of all, Neel. And for someone like me who is very new to all of this, to Sri Aurobindo, and I knew a bit about Savitri, but not so much. Could you please throw light on this story? Is it his imagination? It's not real, right? Yeah, that might be a little bit naive, but that's...
I would like to defer that question to Dhanalakshmi. I don't know if I can... the title is A Legend and a Symbol, right? So it's a legend and it's a symbol. That's, I think, what I can say. Would you want to share what you think?
Actually, this is an ancient story, it is very way back, even before the Vedas. So, we can't decipher whether it is really happened or not, but this is the story in India that is prevailing for ages, say for centuries or ages, you can say. So, I think we need not go into this. There are two great epics in India, Ramayana and Mahabharata. So this is a sub-story in Mahabharata, very small story. But Sri Aurobindo is inspired by this character Savitri. So that is why he took it up as a symbol to explain his spiritual journey or the integral yoga. Hope it is clear. Yeah.
I think also at the beginning, you might have missed it, but we talked about in the author's note how Sri Aurobindo talks about these as living forces. So Savitri, Satyavan, Ashwapati, all of them as living forces, as emanations of living forces that we can enter into concrete touch with. And the mother talks about it as a prophetic guide to the future of humanity and the revelation. So I think it's real in the sense that these forces are real, these energies are real, these beings are real, and it is a kind of guide to where we are and where we're going, and also all the evolution of humanity and the yoga of earth. So in that sense it's real, but I do think it is a symbol, right? It's a legend and a symbol. So it's not always to be taken literally, but I do think it is a symbol of what is real. That's how I understand it, yeah. But that's a very good question, if not easy question. Yeah. Anyone else? Anything that you want to share? Yeah, so I'll just conclude then by telling you a little bit about the space that we're in. So obviously this is Savitri Bhavan, and the focus, so it's a center dedicated to ideals of Auroville, living sense of human unity, And what we do here is spiritual education based on the vision and teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. And the central focus, as the name says, is Sri Aurobindo's epic Savitri. So what we try to do here, and what people have done here quite well, is gather and creating a lot of resources, a lot of materials to help people go deeper into all the works of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, but especially Savitri, and obviously the lives and works and anything related to Sri Aurobindo, Mother or Auroville. And also the space that breathes the atmosphere of Savitri. So that's also, I mean, this is a very beautifully designed space, and we have an endless stream of architectural students coming here to study this space. But yeah, that's what this is. We have all kinds of materials, all kinds of activities and workshops. So just a glimpse of what kind of things we have. We have weekly classes, we have workshops and events, we have a lot of talks, we have film screenings, we have research, publications, we have a library, we have exhibitions. So we have the Meditation on Savitri exhibition that you saw, but also along the way there's an exhibition on the life of Sri Aurobindo in English and Tamil. And towards that side we have in the square hall glimpses of the Mother, so a little bit about her life. And then we have our website, which has a lot of resources. So the reason I'm sharing this with you all is because this was just an introduction to start the journey and to give you some help and hopefully some confidence that you can do this. It's okay if you don't understand, but all the help is there. The Lord Himself will carry you by the hand. It's all there. But all these tools and resources are there, right? You're not the first person. I was not the first person to want to read Savitri and to struggle with Savitri. So there's a lot of help available. So for example, tomorrow, the same time, same space, there's a Savitri study circle, right? Where they read Savitri together, and someone will be there who has been reading it for very long, who studied the works of Sri Aurobindo very extensively. He can answer your questions, you can discuss with other people what is going on, and they'll read line by line Savitri. And on Thursday, so the Savitri study circle happened for a long time by the founder of Savitri Bhavan, Shraddhavan. And so those videos of her Savitri study circle are screened here on Thursdays. And the transcript of those videos was turned into and edited and published as books. So the English of Savitri is again Shraddhavan, who basically dedicated her life to studying Savitri. Her explaining what is going on. She was also a student and a teacher of English literature. So explaining what is going on in Savitri, connecting it to the other works of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. So there's a lot of textual resources. This is also one that I really like. This is just an introduction to Savitri. Like, this is a very tiny little book, but it's giving you an introduction, like a few paragraphs on each book. So what is the book? What is happening in each of these 12 books? And we have Invocation, which is like a research kind of publication. So twice a year it's released, and people publish essays and different things. And one of my favorites, which I recently discovered, is About Savitri. So this is again Huta and the Mother talking about Savitri, and Huta recorded these. So it's the Mother herself explaining Savitri. I mean, what better than that? But unfortunately, this is only 4 volumes, so it's only like 4 cantos that the Mother is explained. But these are just some of the resources. And if you go to our website, there's a lot of videos, there's a lot of talks. I mean, Savitri Bhavan has been here for more than 20 years. So people have been giving talks in this hall for very long, in the other hall also. So people like Alok Pandey and Dr. Nadkarni, and people who've dedicated their life to this. They've spoken on a lot of different things. All of this is just to say there is a lot of resources, there is a lot of material, there is a lot of weekly live events that are happening, not just in Savitri Bhavan but all around Auroville, but also here. So find what works for you, find what you need, what helps you. It's all available. So don't feel like there is no lack of support, there is no lack of help, and feel free to just and also just read a few lines every day. So that's all from my side. I hope this was helpful and it gave you the appreciation and the aspiration for this. I'm really, really grateful to be able to share this with you because I think Savitri was one of the most incredible gifts that I've ever received. This is an incredible blessing that has been given to us by Sri Aurobindo, and I think I would want more people to be able to appreciate it and to receive its benefits. And all this incredible material which people have created, I want more people to be able to use it and access it. So thank you all for coming, and I thought we can end with just a few lines from Savitri from the epilogue. Would anyone like to read it?
A power dwelt in a soul too great for earth. A bliss lived in a heart too large for heaven. Light too intense for thought, and love too boundless. For earth's emotions lit her skies of mind, and spread through her deep and happy seas of soul. Book 12, Epilogue. The Return to Earth. So this is after Savitri gets her husband back.
Thank you. Yeah, this is at the end of the story, the epilogue, when all is said and done. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Sorry? Yeah, please. So officially the session is done. You are free to stay here, chat with me, ask questions, chat with each other. The library unfortunately is closed. It's only Monday to Friday, but the reception is there in case you want to buy any of these books. Or Alexander is also there. You can talk to him about what books you might be interested in. Yeah, so thank you so much. And yeah, you can share your opinion.